Annie Oakley was born in 1860, amidst the vast plains of Ohio at a time when the American West was in full development, with its extensive frontiers being explored. It was an era when women were seen more as homemakers than as action figures or heroines. Annie, the daughter of humble parents, was not an ordinary child. From an early age, she stood out for her ability to hunt and help her family survive. With the premature death of her father, she was forced to fight for survival, and it was in this challenging environment that her eyes began to shine with a rare and special talent. She was known for her speed, precision, and above all, the courage of a woman who refused to be limited by society's expectations. When Annie was only 8 years old, she began to venture into the forests in search of food. With a rifle borrowed from a family friend, she taught herself how to shoot. She hunted with impressive skill, bringing home quail and even large animals with accuracy that amazed others. Over time, her name spread throughout the town, but Annie did not want to be just a hunter. She wanted to be recognized as one of the best, a legend, and with her talent, she soon achieved something that seemed impossible for a woman of her time. She challenged the firearms market, professional hunters, and even the most experienced marksmen in the region. It was in 1875 that Annie Oakley's life changed forever. At the age of 15, she competed in a shooting contest against Frank Butler, a famous professional marksman. Frank Butler was known throughout the region for his skill with firearms and had already gained notoriety. When he saw such a young girl offering to challenge him, he thought it would be an easy victory. Annie, with her fearless spirit and confidence, looked at the man and with remarkable calmness fired her rifle. The first shot hit the target with perfect precision. The second and the third followed the same path. Within seconds, Annie had convincingly defeated Frank Butler. Frank was astounded. In a gesture that would become a hallmark of his life, he recognized Annie's extraordinary skill and invited her to perform with him in a shooting show. Over many performances, a deep friendship grew between them, and Frank soon realized that Annie was not only a naturally talented marksman, but also a woman with a clear vision of her destiny. He believed in her potential and began to train her, not only in shooting, but also in how to dominate the stage and become a star. They began performing together, and it was during these performances that Annie and Frank slowly fell in love. Their romance was pure and simple, built on mutual respect and the desire to conquer the impossible. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and together they were ready to conquer the world. By 1885, Annie Oakley and Frank Butler began performing at fairs and circuses across the country. Their show began to gain recognition, and Annie, with her impressive skills, quickly became the main attraction. She was no longer just a hunter from the countryside. She was now a star, the first lady of shooting. With a captivating smile and a confident look, she fired to hit targets with impressive accuracy, often shooting while riding a horse or even with her eyes blindfolded. Annie captivated the audience, who marveled at the skill of a woman who defied all the limits imposed on her gender. She became the star of a worldwide spectacle, touring successfully in the United States and Europe, drawing the attention of hundreds of thousands of people along the way. Annie began to receive contracts with major companies, such as the famous Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West show, which brought her international fame. But despite her growing fame, Annie never forgot her humble roots and always kept her approachable and friendly personality, charming everyone with her charisma and humility. She was more than a talented marksman. She was a woman with a clear vision and an insatiable desire to prove that skill had no gender. In 1887, Annie Oakley crossed the Atlantic for the first time, heading to London to participate in a shooting spectacle at the Royal Albert Hall. Her performance attracted a massive crowd, including members of the British royal family. During her performance, Annie was challenged to shoot a coin tossed into the air, a challenge that few, even the most experienced marksmen, could accomplish. With a focused gaze and remarkable calmness, she raised her weapon and fired. The coin was struck mid-air, and the audience fell into complete silence before erupting into applause. The legend of Annie Oakley was just beginning to spread, and she became an internationally revered figure. Her skill amazed even the most skeptical, and she quickly became one of the most sought-after attractions on the world stage. Her shooting skills were not only technical, but also a reflection of the dedication, discipline, and passion she poured into each challenge. But what most impressed the audience was her unwavering confidence, the way she shattered the societal barriers of her time and showed the world the true power of an independent woman. Annie Oakley's skill in shooting wasn't just a matter of technique, but also of courage and breaking the barriers surrounding women in 19th century society. When she started performing, the idea of a woman shooting with skill and precision was met with skepticism. The society of the time expected women to engage in more appropriate activities, such as sewing and domestic duties. However, Annie boldly and quietly defied those norms, showing with every shot that the true strength of a woman lay in her courage and determination. She proved that a woman didn't need to be limited by what others expected of her. She fought against stereotypes, showing that women could indeed possess skills that broke the molds imposed by society. Throughout her career, Annie became an icon for women's struggle for equality and autonomy. She not only won hearts and admiration, but also paved the way for other women who, like her, dreamed of breaking barriers and conquering the world. Buffalo Bill Cody, the famous showman, was one of the most well-known figures of the American West, and his Wild West show was the biggest entertainment spectacle of the time. In 1885, he invited Annie Oakley to join his troupe. This invitation not only represented an opportunity for fame, but also the chance to show the world what a woman could do in a male-dominated world. Annie accepted the challenge with enthusiasm, and she quickly became the star of the show. Alongside Buffalo Bill, she traveled across the United States and Europe, showcasing her unmatched talent in shooting. She shot while riding a horse, knocked down moving targets, and performed tricks that left the audience in awe. The story of Annie Oakley and Buffalo Bill became one of the most iconic in the American West, and they became inseparable on stage, forming a partnership that enchanted everyone who watched. However, this partnership was not only a business matter. Annie and Buffalo Bill had a deep mutual admiration, and despite their differences in gender and culture, their friendship became one of the strongest in the history of the Old West. Behind all the fame and public image of Annie Oakley, there was a simple woman with a personal life marked by love, loss, and challenges. She married Frank Butler, her partner on stage, and together they formed a marriage that was both professional and personal. Annie and Frank were inseparable, but at the same time, both had their own internal struggles. Annie felt the constant pressure of being a woman in the spotlight, while Frank struggled with living in the shadow of his wife's fame, often testing his self-esteem. Despite the challenges, the couple always supported each other, and their relationship was marked by deep companionship and mutual respect. Annie never allowed fame to separate her from her personal values. She dedicated herself to her family, her husband, and the cause of women, becoming an example of strength, wisdom, and integrity. Even in times of adversity, she never lost her essence, and her legacy remained as a symbol of resistance and strength for women around the world. Annie Oakley's impact was not only in the world of shooting, but also in how women were seen. In society, she defied the roles traditionally assigned to women and proved that, with determination and courage, it was possible to achieve extraordinary feats. Her influence transcended the American West and the era in which she lived. Throughout her life, she inspired countless women to fight for their rights, challenge expectations, and believe in their own potential. Annie also played a key role in promoting the inclusion of women in sports. She was one of the first to show that shooting was not an exclusively male activity, opening doors for other women who wanted to get involved in the world of sports and competition. Her example was followed by many, and to this day, she is remembered as a feminist icon, a woman who fought to break down barriers and achieve independence. The legacy of Annie Oakley lives on to this day. Her story has been told and retold in books, films, and documentaries, keeping her memory alive for generations. She inspired women all over the world, especially in the field of sports, to fight for their rights and never give up on their dreams. The First Lady of Shooting was not just an extraordinary athlete. She was a woman ahead of her time, who challenged the norms and fought for a better future for all women. Today, many museums and history centers around the world still celebrate Annie Oakley's life and achievements. She's remembered not only for her skill with a rifle, but also for her contribution to gender equality and the inclusion of women in the world of sports and performance. Her story continues to inspire generations, and her name is synonymous with courage, skill, and determination. Annie Oakley, the woman who defied all odds and conquered the world with her extraordinary skills in shooting, became a legend. Her life story, from fearless hunter to international star, remains an example of overcoming adversity. She broke barriers, changed perceptions, and paved the way for future generations of women who would dare to be bold, challenge expectations, and achieve the impossible. Her legacy lives on not only in her shooting skills, but also in the way she built a bridge to the future for women in sports and so many other areas. Today, Annie Oakley remains a symbol of strength, talent, and courage, and her legend continues to be passed down through generations.